Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Healthy AF. So, this is part two of our series on being truthful, taking risks, and doing it with grace. And last time we talked about the CrossFit Open and how, on a scheduled basis, every CrossFitter goes through this thing, if they so choose to, where they get really honest about how well they move and they risk trying new things that they've never tried before. It's a great time of year and it's scheduled. So I wanted to talk to you today about when you are in a behavioral pattern of having something in your life that you're unhappy about and you are persistently complaining about it. I'll just give you a minute. What is that thing, that area in your life that you persistently complain? For me, the easiest one for me to go to was my marriage. I persistently complained about my marriage through my 30s to other friends who had other issues with their marriages, to relatives, to, anyone who would listen. I had this persistent complaint about my marriage. And I think that several of you can relate because this is just how we roll, right? Something doesn't feel good. And clearly, it's not my fault. So it must be someone else's fault. I'm not happy. I don't think that this should go this specific way. I think it should go another way. And clearly, that other person needs to change that. So let me be a little bit more specific just to make sure we're on the same page. If you're listening to this, let me give you two specific examples. I am irritated with my work situation. There's that one coworker, let's call him Bob, who is always coming into my office and mansplaining stuff to me. And then I give him my opinion. He does not even acknowledge that he's heard it. And then he goes off and does something else, messes it up, and then comes back to me and asks me to fix it. Persistent complaint. Happens all the time. Dude comes in here, tells me what to do, doesn't listen to what I have to say, something gets messed up, then all of a sudden it's in my lap to fix. All right, there's one. The second one is my husband is mean. He is completely inconsiderate. He's completely boring. And I don't even know why he doesn't help anymore. But it's just, it's awful to be me. I do everything. Now, if you can relate to one of those, then you're probably choosing a persistent complaint to explore. If you can't relate to one of those, I'd like to call out some BS and say, like, come on, dig deep. There's got to be that spot in your life that's just a persistent, nagging little burr in your side. And most of the time, you just kind of tolerate it, or you might get some reprieve from complaining about it. But it's there. And it's always kind of there, just simmering. This is a part of your life that's going to require some truth, some taking a risk, and a whole lot of grace, like bucketfuls of grace. So when we have persistent complaints like that just sort of don't go away, and we're kind of stuck in them, we don't know what to do. We might have tried a couple things like, well, I'll just try to, tell Bob, my boss, like, well, maybe you could do this, or maybe you could take it to another department, or Bob, I don't like it when you come in and mansplain to me. Or you might tell that husband, yeah, when you say we need to call the plumber, actually it means me, and I would just rather you say me. You might say those things. Okay. There's another truth to be had, and it's a much stickier one. When you have a persistent complaint, The truth is, you haven't taken responsibility for that area of your life. I'm going to say that again. When you have a persistent complaint, you have not taken responsibility for your life. Now, can you see why we need boatloads of grace for this? That's a hard truth to hear, especially if we are in toxic environments, be it work or home, your gym community, your church community, wherever you find community. Yeah, even with your mom, dad, your kids. There's something that you haven't taken responsibility for. And there's a risk. There's a risk to be taken in trying something new. Sometimes that risk is, do I leave my marriage? Sometimes that risk is, do I look at really how I've been truthfully and change the situation? Because truthfully, I haven't been really curious about my husband for the last 10 years. Truthfully, I've shut down. And it's not going to get better because I'm not going to see it if it does get better. Truthfully, all my complaining is actually making it worse. Oh, ouch. That gets you right in the side, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And that feels risky. Feels like trying a new thing. Maybe I'll try not to complain. Maybe I'll try to be honest with how I'm feeling with myself. Maybe I'll try counseling. Maybe I'll try making some decisions that make me happy. Maybe I'll try focusing in on me. All kinds of things that take so much resilience and so much grace. You know, when I actually was at the CrossFit gym preparing to podcast, and I said to a couple friends, like, hey, what am I podcasting about today? And we were talking about looking at the truth and taking risks. And then somebody brought up like how hard it is to be 30s. 30s is hard, especially when you're 30s, married, kids. It's hard to stay connected to you. It's easy to keep going through whatever you're going through. You know, wake up, make breakfast, take the kids to school, go to the gym, do the shopping, wake up, make breakfast, go to work, wake up, make breakfast. You know, it's easy to do that churn, but it's harder to stop and check in, to stop and have a planned, scheduled time that you look for some hard truths, not the easy ones. I'm not talking about the easy truths. Like, oh, my booty looks good in these jeans. I'm not talking about those easy truths. I'm talking about like, oh, my jeans have gotten a little tight. The hard ones. And when do we take time to do that? If you don't have that scheduled on your calendar, please take some time to schedule that on your calendar. Looking for the hard truths, the ones where you can take responsibility for your persistent complaints and your role in your persistent complaints. Yeah. Who has that? Who has that on their calendar? Can you imagine that? I can imagine that now. Like, okay, Molly's field trip on the 8th of February, Max's holiday luncheon on December 4th, doing class mom stuff here, doing, oh, by the way, truth telling day, 4 p.m. on Friday. Yeah, no one does that, right? We do it when the shit hits the fan and we're with our therapist, when our marriage is on the rocks and we have to go to marital counseling. We don't do it on a regular basis. Why not? It's such a great exercise. Calendar some truth-telling time. And by the way, your truth-telling time needs to be with people who will honor and expect your truth and share theirs. So we're not talking about those friends who, when you say, hey, has my butt gotten bigger, will tell you like, oh no, when actually, yes, it has. We're not talking about the ones who will listen to you complain about your husband and never question like, hey, I know that your husband can be a butthole, but are you listening to him? What are you doing that is loving toward him? Woo, those are the hard ones, right? What are you doing to change this situation? Who are you being in this relationship? Yeah, those are some biggies. So do we have those times where we want to, ain't nobody wants to, okay? Do we have those times on our calendar where we're looking for truth and we're surrounded by people who can walk that truthful path with us and be graceful and be resilient together with that grace? Yeah, that's a tough one. And then seeing truth is not where it stops. It's where it starts. Trying something new, having that risk, that's where your life starts to change. Trying something new. It could be as small as a mindset shift. It could be as small as waking up every day and saying, I am going to be loving to this person. Or I am going to be honest with how I feel with this person. Gosh, imagine that. How might your life change if you, when you went into work to see Bob, said to yourself, I am going to be compassionate and I am going to be truthful with Bob today. Oh, I don't know if you'd have a job, but you might be happier. Yeah, there's some risk there. There's some risk. The biggest risk I see when we start getting truthful is how it just rocks our egos, our fragile little egos. And that's where the grace comes in. It's not a human grace. It's not human to, look at our ego and say like, oh, I did that wrong. It feels so good. Oh no, it don't feel good now. When you do something wrong, when you do something you're not proud of, especially if you've done it for a long time and you don't even know because you haven't been looking at it, then all of a sudden you have a truth bomb. Yeah, it takes some grace to be able to then recognize it and shift. So for today, listen to those persistent complaints. Listen to them and start getting honest. What have you not taken responsibility for inside that persistent complaint? Do not gaslight yourself. Get honest. What have you not taken responsibility for inside that persistent complaint? Give yourself a ton of grace and grow, baby, grow. It's on the other side, but you got to get honest about it and you got to take a little risk. I'm right here with you. And if you ever bump up against like, I need to talk about this stuff, or I don't know how to find the truth, or I can't look at this by myself, it's too scary. Well, drop me a line. Y'all have my contact information. We'll sit down and have a chat and see if maybe working together works out for you and for me. I'm rooting for you, and I will see you next time on Healthy AF.